Hey Facebook friends and YouTube. Now I'm going to make a video about his chapter from this book. It's called Crooked Man-Made Disease Explained, Forrest Meredy. And here is the chapter on allergies and asthma. This is on page 236. This book is literally almost 400 pages. But I'm just kind of skipping around to the topics that I'm interested in. So, allergies. I have bad allergies, and I always have. And I was fully vaccinated when I was a kid. I got, what did I get? I don't know. I got every shot that I was supposed to. I was born in 1984. Probably about 16, I'd say. Something like that. I was vaccinated for 16 different things. And I used to have horrible ear infections as a kid. Both of my girls, they're 3 and 5. I have not vaccinated with them. I don't intend to. And they have not had one ear infection. But when I was a kid, I had like at least 5 or 6, maybe more ear infections. And they were bad. And it was a horrible experience. And I had to get tubes in my ears. And I've always had problems with having too much wax in my ears. I finally discovered a solution, putting drops of hydrogen peroxide in my ears like once a week or once a month. And it seems to like clear it out. Like clear out the wax. So I recommend you do that. And I think it really does help prevent ear infections because it just sterilizes your ears. But anyways, it's on the CDC website, really, actually, if you look it up, that ear infections are a very common side effect of vaccines. And I guess they're like, no big deal. Like, who cares about ear infections? Like, well, if you've had one, it's really bad. I mean, you can't function when you have an ear infection. You have to take antibiotics, which does clear it up, but it's like hell. So, okay. So here he talks about allergies and asthma. Here's a quote. Clemens von Perket, 1906, said, "We are in need of a new, general, non-prejudicial word to designate the altered condition which an organism achieves after acquaintance with an organic, living, or inanimate poison." Okay, so that quote was basically about metals, how metals interact with our bodies. All right, allergies and asthma are such a common ailment that modern humans are likely to think they have always existed alongside smallpox or the common cold. The rates may be increasing, they might admit, but allergy or asthma in one form or another has been a constant source of irritation, indeed a deadly threat to others for all of human history. It turns out, like crooked faces, allergies, he talks about that in a previous chapter, which I'll read another time. But I think it's interesting because my face totally is crooked. Like one ear is higher than the other. And, well, like my jaw pops. Of course, in my case, it could be because I fell on my face off my bike when I was a kid. But my face is definitely crooked. But you can really tell now with kids that, yeah, that they seem to have a crooked face. So that's what drew me to this book. I was like, oh, that's interesting because it's called Crooked. Okay. It turns out like crooked faces, allergies and asthma are a relatively recent phenomenon. In 1819, around the same time Charles Bell was beginning to understand the nerve palsies that had been affecting people's faces, another doctor in London announced some peculiar new symptoms he had personally experienced. About the beginning or middle of June in every year, the following symptoms make their appearance with a greater or less degree of violence. A sensation of heat and fullness is experienced in the eyes. Yeah, because allergies can cause, like, inflammation. Like, that's why we get a headache, because our veins are inflamed, basically. And that's why ice really helps. Yeah. And then definitely it causes swelling, I think, in our eyes. And then for me, I get swelling like in my neck when I have allergy problems, which I used to think that was just like neck pain. But now I realized well, my mom said that there's lymph nodes in your neck. So it caused swelling of lymph nodes in my neck. And then that gives me a migraine. Okay, so he says, a general fullness is experienced in the head, and particularly about the forepart. To this succeeds irritation of the nose, producing sneezing. To the sneezings are added a further sensation of tightness of the chest. And a difficulty of breathing. Interesting. Well, I don't necessarily have that problem. You may instantly recognize this particular suffering as seasonal allergies, something that used to be called hay fever. Yeah, because sometimes you do feel kind of hot when you have allergies, but it's not necessarily a cold, it's just allergies. And I always am like, there must be like some mustard gas in the air today. Like, I mean, it's possible. I don't know who would be putting gas over us, but it's like, man, that's what it seems like, you know? Okay, used to be called hay fever, but this doctor and all those listening to his presentation didn't recognize it. None of them had ever heard of anything like it before. I'm not sure how he knows that. Even 10 years later, when he presented again to the same group, he still had found no mention of this very peculiar illness in the medical literature, despite an exhaustive search. None of the most eminent physicians he met with in London, Liverpool, or Edinburgh had heard of it. It was as if hay fever had appeared out of thin air. And then a quote from him, "One of the most remarkable circumstances respecting this complaint is its not having been noticed as a specific affection until within the last 10 or 12 years, except a single observation of Heberden's. I have not met with anything that can be supposed to refer to it in any author, ancient or modern." By the second presentation in 1828, he had been able to find 28 cases and provided some of the details of their suffering. I wonder what caused these people to have allergies. In an account that would mirror later cases of infantile paralysis, the afflictions seemed to target the more affluent ranks of society. People who could afford vaccines, maybe. It is remarkable that all the cases are in the middle or upper classes of society, some indeed of high rank. I have made inquiry at the various dispensaries in London and elsewhere, and I have not heard of a single unequivocal case occurring among the poor. It was clear that hay fever was a new illness. It was also clear its rates were increasing. And like the many other diseases that began to appear during the early 1800s, no one could explain why they were happening, nor seemed to have treatments that could help. Yeah, like there's still not really any treatments for allergies. Over time, hay fever has become a synonymous term with allergic rhinitis, an umbrella diagnosis for the many different seasonal allergies people suffer from these days. Eventually, scientists were able to figure out that pollen, not hay, was the cause. Other triggers would later be discovered, such as mold, dust, and pet hair. But like hay asthma, hay fever was unheard of until the early 1800s. In fact, the terms allergy or anaphylaxis didn't exist within our language at that time. A few references appear to mention unnaturally strong reactions to an insect sting, but that was it. Besides hay fever, the concept of allergy would remain completely foreign to medical literature until the very late 1800s. In what must have seemed an unremarkable coincidence, there was a new medical treatment invented 20 years earlier and just miles away that had begun to gain popularity. It was called vaccination. Oh, it is linked. See? And I wouldn't have even known of the link if it weren't for Facebook, because someone posted something about vaccinated children are like 200 times more likely to have allergies than unvaccinated children, which is very interesting. So 20 years earlier, it began to gain popularity, vaccination. And it was called vaccination, and by scraping the scabs or pus from a farm animal, usually a cow, sick with cowpox, into your arm, it was supposed to allow you to safely generate immunity to a much deadlier version of the disease, smallpox. This concept was initially met with horror by many. The poor could not afford it, but those who could were already reluctant to let a mercury-happy doctor treat them. At the time, any new medical treatment that didn't kill you or cause your teeth to fall out might be considered a technological marvel. Cause your teeth to fall out. Is that why? Well, I've had a lot of cavities. I don't know about you guys. And I've had, well, I don't know. I guess it's possible that like Advil could cause that. And I've taken a lot of Advil for my headaches. Although the vaccine had its share of nasty side effects like full body eczema, another world first, it was deemed safe enough and gained larger acceptance by the end of the 1800s as more people began to allow doctors to cut their arm and rub the ingredients into the wound. Clues as to how the smallpox vaccine might be causing hay fever would not emerge for almost another 100 years. That's crazy. In the 1890s, scientists began work on developing a diphtheria antitoxin, what is now the DTaP, or Tdap shots. Oh, wow. Similar to the techniques they were using to create tetanus antitoxins, they would inject a horse with increasing doses of the diphtheria toxin until it had developed antibodies in its blood. They would bleed the horse, filter out the red blood cells, and take the remaining liquid, optimistically referred to as serum, and inject it into children in hopes of protecting them from diphtheria. There was a danger with this process. The horse blood contained a million other things in it, things which our immune systems would never encounter naturally. The first response to having this diphtheria antitoxin or horse blood serum injected into a child's body could sometimes create a mild response, but the second one could sometimes create a massive life-threatening reaction. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause there because my video's 10 minutes now. So anyways, I'll read more later, and I pray that that benefited some of you, but that is really interesting that hay fever started right around the time of vaccines. And I know I get hay fever, allergies, and it drives me crazy. So anyways, feel free to buy this book on Amazon. It's called Crooked by Forrest Meredy. And may God bless you all. Have a great day.